Mom missed my first ever game my freshman year of college because the plane didn't take off to get to Lubbock to go to watch Texas Tech. So before my freshman year, my mom had never missed a game of mine. So my mom has been my everything for me to get here. I can't even put into words to explain everything, but I'm just really appreciative of you, Mom, because of, all the stuff of us growing up and pushing me to, be where I am today, and making sure I could get to every trip, making sure my teammates made it to every trip. It just means a lot to me. So I love you, and I'm really appreciative of you. So thank you.
With the 6th pick in the 2022 NBA Draft, the Indiana Pacers select Benedict Mathurin from Montreal, the NBA Academy Latin America, and the University of Arizona.
Malika, we have a trade. The Knicks are finalizing a deal to send forward Obi Toppin to the Indiana Pacers for 2 future second-round picks. Obi Toppin, the 8th overall pick in New York in 2020. Listen, this is going to give him an opportunity to play a bigger role in Indiana.
Welcome back to NBA Now, everybody, and I hope you guys are having a good day. Today, we are going to be talking about the Indiana Pacers, the team that is set to be one of the most entertaining teams for the next season, with guys like Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, Obi Toppin, and other young guys across the young team. This team looks to be setting themselves up for success, a team that was very, very good last season prior to Tyrese Halliburton being injured. Tyrese Halliburton only played 56 games last year, and that's why this team ended back up in the lottery with the 8th pick. But gosh, man, they were a fantastic team to watch. Tyrese Halliburton blossomed into an all-star with his first full year in Indiana, and it looks like they're only going to be getting better. After the recent trade for Obi Toppin, who I think complements what they were trying to do perfectly, I just felt like I had to make a video about them just because they seem too interesting, especially when you're looking at young cores across the league. This is one of those teams that they're a young core, but like in the Eastern Conference, they're ready to compete, right? I think we look at the West as a deeper conference currently, and the East as a little bit more top heavy, right? But having probably just as many contenders when you look at guys like the Bucks, the Heat, the Celtics, and the Sixers, etc., right? But Indiana is kind of right in that second mold, and I would almost put them up there, around where Cleveland is, and we saw Cleveland be a top 5 seed last year. Obviously, it being really the first run for a lot of those guys in the playoffs, though, for Cleveland. It didn't end very well as they, were a first-round exit to the New York Knicks. But I think Indiana can have a similar type of jump that Cleveland had last year, where, we were able to really see the sparks last year, and, barring some health, you know what I mean? I think that they can continue to get better. They obviously, like I said, brought in Obi Toppin. We'll be having the second year of Benedict Mathurin, so he'll hopefully have his legs under him a little bit more. Obviously, he was a front runner for Rookie of the Year this last year, in which he was putting up 16 points per game. And really, when you look at the first half of the season, he was playing fantastically. It tapered off a little bit as we got closer towards the end. But he's only 20 years old. Tyrese Halliburton's only 22. Obi Toppin, like who I just said, he was actually drafted higher than Tyrese Halliburton in their draft. Which is interesting to think about, because when he was coming out of college, he was, being mocked as a top 5 guy, even though he was an older guy. I think part of it was, some of the questions offensively as to why he slid, his age, just being an older prospect coming out. It wasn't like he was a one and done or something like that. But it's not like he's old by any means. He's only 25, so he is not even in his prime yet. Obviously not as young as, Benedict Mathurin or anything like that. He's not 2021, but I think he's going to bring another element to this team, especially in transition, where this team plays their best when they can get transition and, be going full head of steam. Well, that's exactly where you want Obi Toppin. So I think he complements the team fantastically in that regard. Looking at the rest of the roster, though, you're still going to have an elite shooter in Buddy Hield. You still have Miles Turner, who I think at this point has become an underrated center. The years of mocking him to be traded out of Indiana, I think, are over. I think he's there to stay. He's their franchise center. He's only 26 years old as well. And like I said, he's been mocked to be traded out of there for years. But he's been a consistent, 15-plus point per game scorer for, I would say, at least the past 5 seasons, averaging 18 last season, as well as 7 rebounds and almost 2.5 blocks per game. I don't think that, he should be going anywhere. Yeah, he might not fit that quite rim runner center all the way, but he brings a defensive identity to this team. He can stretch the floor. I think the idea of him stretching the floor is maybe not what a lot of people think it is, but he is able to shoot the occasional 3. Last year he shot 37% from 3 on 4 attempts a game, so he made 1.5 a game. Again, he can shoot it from 3, but you're not having him chuck up 9 attempts a game as a center or something like that, you know what I mean? But he's a very serviceable stretch big that can play center and is exactly what they need. I think there's some other interesting young guys that you can look at on this team. Aaron Naismith, who was a top pick for the Celtics, was actually moved over in the Malcolm Brogdon trade. He only averaged 10 points last year and shot 36% from 3. He's 23 years old, so I'd be interested to see what kind of bench role he provides for them, and especially if you don't think you're going to bring back Buddy Hield, who obviously is the best 3-point shooter on this team. I guess technically last year TJ McConnell shot better, but I think as more of a core of this nucleus, McConnell's a little bit more expendable, although he's very much an Indiana guy. But I think when you look at Naismith, you look at him as hopefully a potential replacement to Buddy Hield. I don't know what Buddy Hield's market's going to look like next year. Obviously, shooters continue to get paid more and more as the years go by. I want to say he's making about $20 million this next season, and he shot 42% from 3 on 8.5 a game last season. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that goes. Naismith only shot about 4 per game last year, so around what Turner was shooting, and he actually shot a lower percentage technically than Turner, but I think Naismith can be a volume shooter. It's just he's got to put some stuff together. And I think when he did get to Indiana, at least at the start of the season last year as well, he also showed some flashes of just kind of rounding out his game a little bit more as he's gotten more acclimated to the NBA speed and style and such. He ended up starting 60 games for him last year, so I hope that that was good playing time, that he was able to really learn a lot situationally, and like I said, potentially be that future replacement for Buddy Hield. As for some other guys, they did just trade away Chris Duarte. Essentially what they traded for Obi Toppin is what they traded Chris Duarte for, so you could almost call that a swap if you were to look at it from an asset perspective. I don't really like the move of getting rid of Chris Duarte, and I get it because there's still some more young players I have to name off, but most of them are forwards or centers that are a lot of these young players. Like when you're looking at young players that were in the guard position, it was really Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, Chris Duarte, and maybe you could call Naismith that. He's about 6'5", 6'6", so you could play the 2 or the 3. But the rest of these guys are bigger guys. They're gonna play your 4, your 3, some of them your center, and so I don't think rotationally in the future he was gonna be pushed out of it. Now maybe you were trying to sell high on him, although I don't really think they got an exponential amount of value, because like I said, I think they only got like 2 second-round picks for him from Sacramento, but boy, do those two teams trade back and forth like nobody's business. But yeah, I think he'll be a good fit in Sacramento, and I'm excited to see what he does there. If I was Indiana, I would have kept him. He's going to be 26 this next season, I believe. And I mean, he only had 7 points, so it's not like he was what he was his rookie year last year for him. And he shot 31% from 3, so it was a little bit of a down year. But I still think that there was something there that they could have kept, and especially, like I said, the question mark revolving Buddy Hield in the future, because he's 30, he'll be 31 this next season. And so where do you really go with that second starting position next to Halliburton? And like I said, you could go Benedict Mathurin mostly came off the bench last year, only started 17 games, so maybe that's really what you're looking at there. But it doesn't hurt to have some depth there, especially, with young guys, because the more it's the Oklahoma City strategy, the more darts you can throw at the board, the more likely you are to get a bullseye, right? And not necessarily that either of those guys will be an MVP or something like that, but good rotation. So I do think that's an interesting loss to look at. And then a couple other young guys that I wanted to spotlight before we get to the rookie that they just drafted is Jalen Smith. I really, really like what Jalen Smith was able to do for them. He played 68 games last year, started 31, averaged almost 10 a game, shot 47% from the field and 28% from 3, as well as getting almost a block per game and about 6 rebounds per game. So I think he's very good as your backup center. He's very much that rim runner style that you'd like next to Halliburton. So though, like I said, I think Turner is your franchise center, he provides that different element, which is something that you can go to throughout the regular season, throughout games, and just kind of have a little bit more of a spark at that center position. I'm not sure if Jordan Nwora will be back this next season for him. If he is, he's another guy that can shoot the ball. 42% from 3 last year. He was drafted by the Bucks a couple years ago in the 2nd round. Many of you may know him from there. He's only 24 years old, and he had 13 points per game for him last season. So we'll see what happens there. I'm not sure, again, if he's coming back this next season. He only played 24 games for him. But he's an interesting shooter that, with the departure of Chris Duarte, maybe he would get more minutes or something like that. So if they do bring him back, I'd be interested in that for them, especially him being a little bit bigger. As a shooter, he can play at the 3 or the 4, which just gives you lineup versatility. And then Isaiah Jackson, only 21 years old, drafted a few years ago. He only started 12 games this last season, only played 63. A big theme across this roster is not a lot. Like, this roster was pretty injury prone. Buddy Hield played the most games at 80. He didn't even start all the games he played, though. He only started 73. And then nobody else on the roster played 80 games last year in the 82-game season. Now, yeah, there were 70s. Like I said, Benedict Mathurin was pretty healthy throughout the year. Andrew Nembhard played quite a bit. Naismith, TJ McConnell, Jalen Smith playing 68. He was like top 5 in games played for him last year. So something to look at was the health last year. Hopefully that's a little bit better this next season. That's kind of an uncontrollable aspect, but it's definitely, at least when you're looking at a potential jump, a red flag, because if everybody's injured, there's no shot you make a jump, right? We saw how long it took for the Kings to really kind of put their pieces together. And, aside from their, 20-year playoff drought, even just in the De'Aaron Fox era, he's 6-7 years into his career, and they finally made the playoffs. So making that jump is not anything easy to do, and it only gets harder from there, because then, okay, you made the playoffs, now what? Now you're going to do something in the playoffs, right? And so the Kings are going to have to face that this next year. The Cavs are going to have to face that this next year, and I think the Pacers, like I said, kind of will probably follow in the footsteps of those two teams, maybe not quite being a top 2 team or something like that, but really having their first playoff berth. And to do that, you need to be healthy. You have to play 82 games. You have to win the easy ones and play good against the good teams and, steal some of those wins. If you beat all the teams you should beat, you almost make the playoffs. It's about those couple other wins, and then you're right there, right? And so, like I said, Isaiah Jackson, I kind of went on a tangent there, but I think an important one to note. But yeah, Isaiah Jackson only played 63 games for him last year, 21 years old, averaged 7 points and 5 rebounds. And that wasn't playing a lot per game. He only played 12 minutes a game. So, did he only play 12 minutes a game? Did I just read that wrong? Sorry, he played 16 minutes per game. So maybe not quite the exact splits, but he definitely still has some potential as a defensive guy. Kind of a 4/5. Not a great shooter. Doesn't shoot a lot for a reason, especially from 3. Only shot 14% on 0.2 attempts a game. So not a large sample, but obviously stayed away from it for a reason. And I think a clear indicator of him as a shooter would be his free throw percentage at 65%. So probably a guy that you'd look at as more of a 4 or 5, but definitely a defender and an interesting, developmental guy, only being 21 years old. But now to their rookie, Jarace Walker, kind of in that similar mold. He's 6'7". I want to say that Isaiah Jackson is 6'8". So Jarace Walker, he really projects to be a super good post/wing defender, kind of year 4/year 3. Was actually fantastic on catch and shoot before he got to the league. So he shot 41% on catch and shoot this last year. And so we'll have to see if that's able to translate, because if that translates, that's very good playing next to the playmaker that Tyrese Halliburton is. Tyrese last year, he averaged 10 assists a game. Like, for his career, he averages 8. He is a true playmaker. And so the better you are on catch and shoot, the better you're going to perform next to him. So definitely your typical 3-and-D guy that you're looking for in the draft. That's definitely where they went with Jarace Walker. And like I said, I think he should be a good addition. He kind of fits in. It is a little bit of a logjam there at that 4 position, because now you have Obi, you've got Jarace Walker, you already had Isaiah Jackson. Jalen Smith can play the 4 a little bit, because like I said, he can stretch the floor a little bit, not tremendously. He shot about almost 30% this last year. And so it'll be interesting. A little bit of a logjam there for minutes, and you're really going to have to kind of push some guys out the way. Maybe an Isaiah Jackson kind of falls to the wayside just due to the 2 additions of Jarace Walker and Obi Toppin. But we'll just kind of have to wait and see for that. Other than that, though, definitely a very good-looking prospect. Doesn't project, I don't think, to be a star or a superstar by any means, but to be an elite role player is definitely something you could look at getting out of him. Not an incredible handle or anything like that where he's going to be taking guys off the dribble, but if he can shoot 41% on catch and shoot, if he can shoot, he shot 34% from 3 this last year. His free throws were a little concerning on that, and being only 66%, and typically that's something you want to look at for a consistent jump when it comes to prospects' shooting capability. But yeah, really coming in to be that big time defender for him. So we'll see how he kind of projects going into the future. Back to Bennedict Mathurin though. Definitely a guy that I hope can get a big jump for him. 6'6", 210, averaged, like I said, almost 17 points per game last year, 4 rebounds, shot 43% from the field and 32% from 3. So hopefully those shooting splits can get a little bit better. I don't hate that three-point percentage at the volume he was taking them, because last year he was taking about 4 3-pointers a game. So I don't hate 32%. It's around league average. Really, that field goal percentage is going to need to go up, though. If you can get that closer to 48, 50, obviously as a guard, I get it. You're going to shoot you're not going to shoot what a big man shoots. But I would like to see him become a more efficient scorer, especially if he's going to expand into a starting role here in the next couple of years. And I think that would be very beneficial for this team, because if you're running a lot of fast breaks, if you can be very efficient scoring the ball and play good defense, that's going to lead to a lot of success, and I think something that this team could hang their hat on for sure. And then the final guy I really want to talk about is somebody we haven't really spoken on, which is Bruce Brown. So like I said, they didn't have a lot of play at guard, which is why I was a little bit interested with the Chris Duarte trade. They brought in Bruce Brown. Obviously, in my opinion, as a Nuggets fan, they overpaid for him. Shout out to Bruce for getting the bag. It's pretty much double what we could have even offered him. So he gets his ring. He goes there. Would have loved to kept him as a Nuggets fan, but I absolutely understand it. He's going to go make, I want to say $22.5 million this next year. It's a 2-year, $45 million deal. And he's going to be really good as in that kind of same mold. He's going to get out and go and transition. He averaged about 11 points per game last year, shot 35% from 3 and 48% from the field. So closer splits to what I'd like Mathurin to get to, at least percentage-wise. And he's a hustle guy. He's going to play defense. We know he can essentially guard 1 through 4, depending on who's really at 4. Really versatile in the ways you can play him. When you look at how he played in Brooklyn, where he was the 4 and he was the pick-and-roll partner and doing these little floaters and stuff like that, to where he was the backup point guard for us last year in our championship run with the Nuggets, essentially. So really a versatile player. He's going to bring a lot of different things to this team, a veteran presence, a guy that's been there, done that, right? So when you talk about really trying to make your first leap into the playoffs, I think he's going to be very important on that end. I think he has to start, just based off the money he's getting paid. I'd be very shocked if they bring him off the bench, at least to start the year. So really lineup-wise, what I'd project to see is probably Tyrese Halliburton at the 1, Buddy Hield at the 2, Bruce at the 3, probably Obi Toppin at the 4, and then Miles Turner at the 5 is your starters. Off the bench, TJ McConnell, Benedict Mathurin, Aaron Naismith, Jarace Walker, and Jalen Smith is really how I'd roll out a 10-man rotation, which, like I said, that's where it gets interesting. If they do have Jordan Nwora next year, he probably slides a little bit. Maybe Andrew Nembhard plays more than TJ McConnell, but I really feel like they would keep that veteran presence in there, even though Nembhard had a decent year for him last year, playing 75 games and starting 63. I do think with the addition of Bruce Brown, though, that's going to push a lot of minutes away from him. And then I don't know if I mentioned Isaiah Jackson losing some minutes, but him as well. And so it'll be interesting to see, but they definitely have a solid 10 guys with Bruce there, and a lot of those guys can get outrun and really make stuff happen in transition. So let me know what you guys think the Indiana Pacers are going to do this next season. Are you guys excited to see that? And is Tyrese Halliburton going to be an all-star again? Or is this team going to be a top 4 seed? I guess we'll have to wait and see, but it's definitely exciting in Indiana for the future and for the current. And yeah, I'm just excited to see what they're able to pull off this next season. So that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you guys drop a like and comment down below, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace out, guys.